Welcome back. Search underway. With Vice President Kamala Harris now at the top of the Democratic ticket, she is in a search for a running mate of her own in this year's election. Today, we're going to take a look at my top 5 list of Democrats I think Vice President Harris should be looking at for this year's selection. We'll talk about what they bring to the table, how they might help or hurt Vice President Harris's chances in this election, and how we go ahead from here. We'll be taking a look at all those stories and more. Today, July 24th, 2024. From Ishan Media, this is the Ishan S. Show, with me, your host, Ishan. Thank you so much for joining us. So 4 years ago, Joe Biden had a decision to make. Who was he going to pick as his running mate? And that is a decision that every presidential nominee has to make. And it is usually one of the biggest decisions that they will ever make. It's because it sets the tone of what the election looks like to them, what their strategy and their goals are, who they're targeting, what their policy views are, how they want to unite the party. And I already did an in-depth analysis of what that process looks like in the episode we made last week about the selection of Senator J.D. Vance. But with this change at the top of the Democratic ticket following President Biden's decision to drop out of the 2024 race, the woman he picked 4 years ago, Kamala Harris, now has to make that decision herself. And whoever she picks as her running mate will now deliver a clear message of what she thinks this race needs to look like. President Trump picked anti-Trump turned MAGA sweetheart J.D. Vance to be his pick. Overconfident? I'd say so. But Harris is going to have to, will she tap into that same overconfidence? Or will she try to balance the ticket and bring more voters into her camp? We're going to talk about the top 5 Democrats Kamala Harris might want to pick as a running mate. So first, let's talk about Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. Senator Kelly, who has served as the junior senator, United States Senator from Arizona since December of 2020, brings a unique blend of experience and skills to the political arena. He is a retired U.S. Navy combat pilot and NASA astronaut, and he also has a diverse background when it comes to legislative work and public service. His military career included 39 combat missions during the Gulf War, followed by a distinguished tenure at NASA, where he became a veteran of 4 space shuttle missions and played a crucial role in constructing the International Space Station. Quite the career. In his political career, Kelly has demonstrated the ability to appeal to moderate and independent voters as a senator for Arizona. And traditionally Republican state, although trending blue, it's the work that he's done on a range of issues, including national security, as well as veterans affairs and gun control. And specifically about gun control, Kelly co-founded Americans for Responsible Solutions with his wife, former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, advocating for responsible gun legislation after she survived an assassination attempt in 2011. And that's something that has gained them a lot of prominence through their work in that organization. Now, Mark Kelly's combination of political experience, moderate appeal, and advocacy for critical issues make him that compelling choice as a running mate for Vice President Harris. His unique background and skills would also strengthen the ticket because he has this story to tell, and it enhances that spectrum of voters that they can reach. And it also helps that, Kelly and Vice President Harris share a close relationship. They've worked together on key policies, and Harris reportedly is quite fond of Kelly. Now, the complication that comes with a Kelly selection is the Senate seat that he currently holds. If he is to win and become vice president, Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs would now be empowered, be empowered with the decision to pick his replacement, which in itself is not necessarily a bad thing for Democrats. However, the Senate seat that Mark Kelly currently holds has been up for election so many times in the last 6 or 7 years, and it would be up again then in 2026. that Senate seat can't catch a break. And the issue for Arizona Democrats is that they might have to stretch resources just to be able to win that seat again in 2026, which could jeopardize other efforts. So it's more of a long-term concern that the Harris campaign is going to have to look at. But let's talk about Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina, who has served as the governor there since January of 2017. He brings a wealth of political experience and a track record of effective leadership to the national scene. His political career began in the North Carolina House of Representatives, followed by service in the North Carolina State Senate. In 2000, he was elected as the state's attorney general, a position which he held for 4 terms, where he focused on consumer protection, as well as fighting crime and advocating for the rights of North Carolinians. That is actually where he met Vice President Harris, who was then at the time Attorney General of California from 2009 to 2017. She is also quite very fond of him, and the two have worked closely on a lot of issues, especially during their times as attorneys general. As governor, Cooper has championed issues such as healthcare, access to education, economic development, and his tenure during the COVID-19 pandemic was marked by a science-based approach that really garnered him popularity among Democrats. And he also worked very hard on the economic recovery of his state. Now, Cooper's ability to navigate complex challenges and implement pragmatic solutions at a state level have earned him respect across party lines. And Cooper's appeal extends beyond his political achievements. As a Southern Democrat, he is uniquely positioned to have been able to govern successfully a swing state, demonstrating that ability to connect with a diverse constituency and to win support from moderate and independent voters. And going into that calculus, it is a crucial state that he comes from, North Carolina. It's a state that Democrats have always wanted. It's the closest state that Biden lost in 2020. Now, in addition to all of that, Cooper has also been a tireless advocate for reproductive freedom in North Carolina. And while he's not been successful because he works against a Republican supermajority in the legislature, he has vetoed a lot of bills that restrict abortion access, an issue really important to Vice President Harris. But furthermore, Cooper's focus on educating and economic development aligns with those core Democratic values and priorities of white working class voters, a group that Harris is really trying to tap into with this election. And through that economic initiative and all of the stuff that he's done since COVID, I think it's something that can definitely appeal to a lot of swing and moderate voters. And Governor Cooper's extensive political experience, moderate appeal, proven leadership make him that compelling choice of a running mate to be with Vice President Harris. And I would, if you ask me, I think he is definitely in the top 2 of this list. I will tell you who I think is also among the top 2. I won't tell you who I think is the best. But I do think that Governor Cooper is also is someone who could definitely bring a lot of experience, and I think is the most closely considered because, you know, Harris is from California, a blue state. So a selection of Cooper would tell us that her priority is to win swing voters. And then a selection of Cooper also shows us that she wants to expand that base. Now, the only complication from a Cooper selection would be that it would alter state politics just a little. The lieutenant governor of North Carolina is a Republican who is currently running for governor of the state. We'll talk about him in a future episode one day, but he is about as far right-wing as you can get. And Cooper has virtually a non-existent relationship with the lieutenant governor. But in North Carolina, anytime the governor leaves the state, his powers will automatically get transferred to the lieutenant governor. Now, assuming that Cooper is picked and Cooper, as the vice presidential candidate will be traveling a lot, it could be a slight concern that they are giving power to the Republican lieutenant governor. But next up is Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who has been serving as the governor there for a short 18 months since January of 2023, but he brings a dynamic blend of legal expertise and political acumen. His political career began in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, where he served from 2005 to 2012, and then he served as the chair of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners, where he focused on fiscal responsibility as well as government transparency. But I think the position that really brought Shapiro to fame was in 2017 when Shapiro was elected as the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, similar to Vice President Harris, a role in which he made a lot of strides in consumer advocacy, protecting, fighting for criminal justice reform, tackling the opioid crisis. And his tenure as Attorney General was it had a lot of high profile cases, including that landmark investigation into sexual abuse within the Catholic Church, which, demonstrated that mission of Josh Shapiro is to hold powerful institutions accountable and fighting for victims' rights. But he won that hard-fought gubernatorial election in the state of Pennsylvania, which we covered here on the Ishan S. Show. He won that state by 15 points, which is unheard of. And as governor, Shapiro has prioritized issues like education, healthcare, and economic development in his so far short tenure as governor of Pennsylvania. But Shapiro's appeal as a potential running mate for Vice President Harris extends beyond his policy achievements. Pennsylvania is arguably one of the most important swing states, and Shapiro's ability to win in this state demonstrates that he has a connection with voters across the political spectrum. His moderate and pragmatic approach to policymaking make him that quality candidate that I think a lot might appreciate in a running mate. And it helps with those undecided voters in securing that national election. Now, delivering Pennsylvania would be monumental. And the type of appeal that he has to win in Pennsylvania is the same type that is needed for Vice President Harris to win in Wisconsin and Michigan. And Shapiro brings that to the table. And Shapiro's focus on justice, integrity, and other core democratic values are stuff that I think Vice President Harris can get on board with when it comes to trying to appeal to the base of the Democratic Party, who may not be excited about a moderate pick, but might appreciate the work that he has done when it comes to fighting for those key Democratic Party values. And as well as working and trying to make that government of Pennsylvania of by and for the people, his extensive legal and political experience and all of that is, I think, something that can help with the relationship with Kamala Harris because she herself has a law enforcement background. So I think that their similar careers might be able to interject with one another and might be able to create that relationship, which is so important for a vice president and a president when it comes to these types of candidates. And it strengthens the ticket and enhances the appeal and expands the range of voters. In today's fast-paced and chaotic political landscape, it's more important than ever to stay informed and responsible as voters. That's why the Ishan S. Show is here, to help you make sense of it all. It's my mission to democratize news access, provide unbiased reporting, and deliver real analysis on the biggest issues of our time. And I love this job so much because it allows me to teach and inform so many people, specifically young people, about the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics. And so if you find my episodes valuable, please share them with your friends and family. It's the best way to help this show grow. Please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, and check out the political news blog and subscribe there on the IshanSshow.com for more in-depth analysis. We're also active on X and Instagram, so be sure to follow us there as well for breaking news posts and updates about the show. Every time someone tells me that the Ishan S. Show is the reason they went out to vote or they paid attention to a news cycle, it means the world to me. Thank you for your incredible support over the past 3 years. Your engagement and dedication mean the world to me. And as we head into the final weeks of the 2024 election, I look forward to continuing this journey together. And now we're going to return back to the great episode that we have planned for you. All right, we're back. So next up is Governor Gretchen Whitmer of the state of Michigan. Governor Whitmer has been serving as the governor of Michigan since January of 2019, and she offers this very compelling combination of leadership and resilience and dedication to public service. You know, all those key core things that matter so much to swing voters and independent and Democratic voters. She has become a really influential figure in our politics through her policy work, so much so that in 2020, Whitmer was in competition with Vice President Harris to be President Biden's running mate. She made it to the short list. So she began her political career in the Michigan House of Representatives back in 2001 and later served in the Michigan State Senate, where she became the Senate Minority Leader in the Senate there. Her legislative work focused on healthcare, education, and workers' rights, again, reflecting on those key Democratic values that ended up serving her well because she was elected as governor of Michigan in 2018 during the blue wave year. It's been in her time as governor where she's faced challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic recovery of her state. Her leadership during the pandemic was sparked by the science-based approach, again, another one of those approaches which prioritized public health while balancing the economic effects of those types of measures. And Whitmer's ability to navigate those complex crises and making those tough, decisive decisions allowed her to really come across as this smart, competent governor who was able to make the tough decisions. And those types of policy decisions she was making, while risky, ended up giving her good returns and gained her prominence and popularity. And she's also had a lot of substantial progress on infrastructure and economic development. Her signature Fix the Damn Roads initiative underscored her focus on improving Michigan's infrastructure, and those have helped attract new businesses, create new jobs, and strengthen the state's economy. And again, that's something that voters really like to hear about. As well as beyond that, her interest in expanding access to Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act has ensured more access to health services for Michigan residents. But once again, like all of these candidates, her appeal does extend beyond policy achievements, and that's because of her home state of Michigan. It's a critical swing state, and her ability to win election and re-election by 10 points in an environment like Michigan, in a swing state like that, shows her ability to connect with moderate and swing voters because of her moderate and pragmatic approach to politics. And she's able to win those undecided voters and the independent voters and the swing voters, which would be crucial in delivering a victory for Vice President Harris at a presidential level. And Whitmer's advocacy for women's rights, as well as specifically reproductive freedom in Michigan, has become a huge part of her brand and something that is very important to Vice President Harris, and I think is also something important to creating that relationship. Whitmer is also fighting extremism in her state and in upholding those democratic principles, rejecting things like the big lie, and also facing a kidnapping plot against her. So she navigates that tough political environment in a very classy way. And it would also make history as the first all-woman ticket to ever run in a general election. There are a lot of views on it, but here's then Senator Kamala Harris's view on an all-woman ticket.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, to your point, Tamron, I was a candidate for president, and it was, among the top 5 throughout the campaign. And when I was asked, who would I pick for my vice president, I said that back then, I haven't decided yet who she'll be. So I'm not hating. I'm not.
Right. I understand that. Okay, well, let me get to
Now, pointedly, Whitmer has already said she is not interested in running on the Democratic ticket, but that doesn't stop Democratic lawyers from asking her for vetting materials. But next up, and actually last on our list, who I think is, and rounding out the top 2 of what I think will be the vice presidential picks, is Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky. He's been the governor of this state since 2019 and brings a record of bipartisan collaboration and commitment in service to the Kentucky landscape. So he's not your average Democratic politician. His political career began as Attorney General of Kentucky, a position he held from 2016 to 2019. And during his time as Attorney General, similar to Kamala Harris and Roy Cooper and Josh Shapiro, he fought for consumers, fought corruption, addressed the opioid crisis, and he earned this reputation for integrity and effective advocacy, which is, I think, a pretty nice quality to have. As governor, Beshear has navigated significant challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic recovery, similar to the other governors on this list. His leadership during the pandemic was characterized by, again, a more decisive approach. And despite, being in a red state like Kentucky, his ability to protect those Kentuckians while also balancing economic impacts are something that allowed him to work across party lines and create a consensus of bipartisan support for critical initiatives. And he demonstrated that competency when it comes to building that consensus and trying to get those achievable results. And his tenure in general has been focused by a strong focus on education and healthcare. He's prioritized funding public schools, advocating for teacher pay, expanding access to affordable healthcare. Again, important issues to Vice President Harris that I think are important to building that running mate relationship, because they can see eye to eye on a few policies. And he's also been really big on supporting businesses and contributing to the state's economic growth, because of course Kentucky is not necessarily the strongest economy, but he's been trying to work on building that. But this is where he shines. Kentucky is traditionally a Republican stronghold. And so Beshear's success here to win and maintain support in an environment like Kentucky demonstrates an appeal to moderate and independent voters, and his pragmatic and empathetic approach resonates with a broad spectrum of voters. In fact, last year, when he won re-election, he won by a pretty comfortable margin, campaigning on reproductive rights in Kentucky. And so winning as a Democrat shows that he is perfectly capable of winning those swing voters that are so important in this election. And also, he's really been auditioning for this job. Here's a clip of Governor Beshear literally criticizing J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential nominee, on Morning Joe.
Help your own people, Surya. Are you at least open to the possibility of being a running mate to Vice President Harris?
Well, I think if somebody calls you on that, what you do is at least listen. And I want the American people to know what a Kentuckian is and what they look like, because let me just tell you that J.D. Vance ain't from here. The nerve that he has to call the people of Kentucky, of Eastern Kentucky, lazy. Listen, these are the hardworking coal miners that powered the Industrial Revolution, that created the strongest middle class the world has ever seen, powered us through 2 world wars. We should be thanking them, not calling them lazy. And so today was an opportunity to both support the vice president, but also to stand up for my people. Nobody calls us names, especially those that have worked hard for the betterment of this country.
So Governor Beshear, I can say, is ready. His extensive background, I think, delivers this profile that I think would be really appealing to a lot of those moderate swing voters. And I think his approach to politics, he's been very separated from the National Democratic Party. He's been very focused on state issues, which is something that I think has allowed him to have success as a Democrat in Kentucky. He's really tapped into staying out of the national discussion. But those were the candidates that I think are in top contention, and whoever Harris will pick is going to be someone who communicates to constituencies that she herself cannot directly resonate with. And unlike the mistake I think former President Donald Trump made, Harris will not make an overtly partisan choice. I really do believe she will pick one of these people because of their moderate appeal, something she doesn't necessarily excel with. And that's where I think Republicans went wrong. J.D. Vance, like I said last week, is a legacy pick. So when will we get the decision, though? It's unclear when we'll get the decision, but vetting materials have been asked from these candidates, and we expect to get it within 2 weeks. Because that's when the Democratic National Convention's roll call of the delegates will be. So ultimately, they will be selecting nominees for president and vice president in 2 weeks. So we'll get news soon. But if you want to be among the first to know about Harris's VP pick, subscribe to the political news blog on theishaneshow.com. Follow us on X and Instagram and Threads for breaking news posts and updates about the show, and subscribe on YouTube and follow on Spotify. Share this episode and all your favorite episodes with your friends and family. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take a little time to enjoy the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics. We'll see you tomorrow.